Hello friends, my name is Dr. Harold Emerson. I'm 82 years old this year and have been practicing internal medicine for nearly 5 decades. Most of that time spent walking alongside seniors as they age through some of life's most delicate seasons. Over the years, one truth has become painfully clear to me. Diabetes is not just a blood sugar issue. It is a quiet thief. It robs people not only of their strength, but of their sight, their limbs, and too often, their dignity. And more than any diagnosis I've ever given, it's not the disease itself that hurts the most. It's the small choices, repeated daily, that either lead to healing or to heartbreak. That's why today, I want to talk to you plainly and gently about the 5 worst eating habits I've seen destroy the health of older adults living with or at risk for diabetes, especially those in their 60s, 70s, and beyond. But don't worry, I'll also offer you better paths, gentle swaps that don't sacrifice flavor, comfort, or tradition. Let's begin. 1. White rice with soup, a comforting killer. For many of us growing older, food is not just nourishment, it's memory. And few dishes carry more tenderness than a warm bowl of white rice soaked in broth. It's simple, it's soft, it's familiar. I've had countless patients tell me, "Doc, it's what I grew up with. My mama made it when I was sick. My wife served it every Sunday after church." In those moments I nod, because I understand. I do. There's something sacred about those rituals, the ones that connect us to our childhood, to the people we loved, to the kitchens where time seemed to slow down. But after nearly 5 decades in practice, I've come to learn that comfort food, while good for the soul, can quietly betray the body, especially in the final third of life. You see, white rice, on its own, already breaks down into sugar very quickly. But when you add hot broth and turn it into a soft porridge or soup, it digests even faster. It's like sending a sugar wave straight into your bloodstream, and for an aging pancreas, already weary from years of working overtime, that wave is a flood. Over time, these little floods take their toll. I remember one man in particular, Mr. Raymond, 74 years old, a retired school principal who still carried himself like he was in charge of a classroom. Tall, gentle voice, always carried a book under his arm. He lived alone after losing his wife and told me that rice soup was his daily comfort. Breakfast, lunch, sometimes dinner too. It was easy on his stomach, he said. Reminded him of better days. But Mr. Raymond was also diabetic, and year after year, despite his best intentions, his blood sugar inched up. Then came the nerve damage. The day he walked into my clinic with a deep wound on his foot, one he hadn't even felt. I knew we were in trouble. We did what we could, wound care, antibiotics, but the infection had gone too deep. Within weeks he lost 2 toes, and as I sat beside his hospital bed, he looked at me and said, "Doc, I never imagined something so small could take so much from me." That moment has stayed with me ever since, because it wasn't a big decision that led him there, it was a daily one. A bowl of soup, a scoop of rice, a habit rooted in comfort and in silence. He wasn't alone. There was also Mrs. Eunice, 81, bright eyes, loved her garden. She too was a rice and stew woman. She told me she didn't eat sugar, never liked cakes or candy, but her white porridge 3 times a day told a different story. She came to me after noticing blurred vision. By the time we ran her tests, diabetic retinopathy had already begun to steal the sight from her left eye. She wept, not just for what she was losing, but for the realization that what she trusted most was slowly harming her. These stories aren't rare. In fact, I hear them so often they feel like echoes. And yet every time my heart aches a little, because these are good people. People who kept their lives simple, who thought they were doing everything right. But no one had told them the truth about how aging bodies change, how what once nourished you can later overwhelm you. But I'm here to tell you, it's not too late. You don't need to give up warmth or tradition. You just need to reframe it, gently, wisely. Start by switching white rice for whole grains like brown rice, barley, or oats. These foods digest more slowly, giving your body time to respond. They won't spike your blood sugar like polished white rice does. And just as important, keep your rice and soup separate. Sip the broth slowly. Eat your grains 1 spoonful at a time. Let your meals stretch out like a prayer. Not rushed, not careless, but mindful and full of gratitude. And above all, chew. Chew longer than you think you need to. Chewing isn't just about breaking food down. It's about signaling your body, preparing it to receive nourishment gently. When you chew well, your body listens more carefully and your blood sugar rises more gracefully. I know change isn't easy, especially when it touches something as intimate as food. But I've seen what's possible when people make this one adjustment. Blood sugars drop, fatigue lifts, neuropathy eases, some even regain feeling in their feet, clarity in their eyes. The difference is real. And it starts with a choice. So I ask you, not as a doctor, but as someone who's walked beside thousands of elders in their final seasons of life, will you choose comfort at the cost of your independence? Or will you choose a new kind of comfort, one rooted not just in tradition, but in care, in longevity, and in love? Because I believe you still have time. I believe there are gardens yet to tend, grandchildren yet to hold, sunrises yet to greet with steady feet and clear eyes. And it can start today, with one bowl, one meal, one quiet promise to yourself. I will eat to remember the past, yes, but I will eat also to protect my future. Now let's talk about the drinks we think are healing, but may be doing far more harm than good. 2. Sweet traditional drinks, the hidden danger. After we talk about rice, the next thing that often comes up is tea. But doc, I hear again and again, it's just a cup of yuzu tea, just a little honey and warm ginger. My grandmother drank it every winter and lived to 92. I don't argue with the memories, I never do. I honor them, because that steaming cup, held between two tired hands, often carries more than liquid. It carries legacy. It carries love. It carries the echo of someone who once brewed it for you when you were small and shivering and needed comfort. But the truth is, not everything handed down is harmless, especially when the body has changed, when the pancreas no longer whispers but gasps, and when a cup that once healed now quietly harms. Traditional sweet drinks like yuzu tea, ginger honey infusions, or even fruit preserves mixed into hot water are deceptively gentle. They feel medicinal, warm, natural, but for someone managing blood sugar, they're more like sipping syrup. What we forget is how sugar hides in what we believe to be healthy. A spoonful here, a spoonful there. But when you start each day and end each evening with that kind of drink, you're soaking your bloodstream in sweetness it cannot handle. One of my patients, Mrs. Keller, 72 years old, retired nurse, proud grandmother, came to see me after losing her peripheral vision. She was shocked. "Doc, I eat so clean," she told me. "No soda, no cookies, just my warm yuzu tea each morning. It helps my joints." When I gently asked her how she made it, she smiled. "Just 2 tablespoons of yuzu marmalade, maybe 3 if I'm feeling stiff. 2 to 3 tablespoons every day, sometimes twice. That's nearly 15 grams of sugar per cup, not counting any extra honey." Her A1C was climbing slowly for years, but no one connected the dots. She thought she was avoiding sweets, and yet they were in her cup every morning like a silent visitor. By the time we caught the damage, the vessels in her eyes were already failing. Her diagnosis was diabetic retinopathy. I still remember how quiet she became when I explained it. Not angry, just sad. "Why didn't anyone tell me?" she whispered. I had no good answer, and she wasn't the only one. Mr. Choi, a Korean War veteran I saw for nearly 10 years, drank sweet ginger tea religiously, said it helped his digestion, calmed his stomach, kept him warm in winter. He never once thought of it as sugar, not in the way he thought of cake or soda, and so he drank it like water. Over time, his kidneys began to fail. His sugar spiked after every meal. He couldn't understand why. "I haven't touched candy in 20 years, Doc," he told me, and he meant it. but his tea, sweetened daily, was enough to slowly pull him under. I don't tell these stories to shame you. I tell them because I've seen what happens when good people with good intentions are left in the dark, when our traditions are not questioned, not with judgment, but with care. We risk repeating mistakes that cost us more than we realize. But here's the good news. You don't have to give up warmth. You don't have to give up the ritual of sipping something comforting at the end of a long day. You simply have to choose differently, with more tenderness toward your body. There are so many herbal teas that bring peace without punishment. Cinnamon tea, known to help improve insulin sensitivity. Barley tea, which warms the belly without raising glucose. Corn silk tea, gentle on the kidneys, soothing to the bladder. These are gifts from nature too, but ones that respect the quiet fragility of an aging body. Even something as simple as ginger slices steeped in hot water without sugar can give you warmth and relief. And if you truly need a touch of sweetness, add a single drop of raw honey. Not every day, but once in a while, like you'd add perfume, as a treat, not as medicine. And here's something else I want you to remember. Your body speaks in quiet ways. If your vision is changing, if your fingers feel numb, if your mornings begin with thirst and fatigue, don't just write it off as old age. These are signals, whispers, and sometimes they're telling you that what you think is helping may be harming. So next time you reach for that sweetened tea, pause. Ask yourself, is this cup honoring my health or just echoing a habit? And then choose again. Choose with clarity. Choose with kindness. Because your future still has space for long walks, quiet evenings, the laughter of your grandchildren around the table. But only if you learn to sip with wisdom. Not all sweetness belongs in your cup, but peace still can. 3. Glutinous snacks and sweet fruits. A loving mistake is a moment I've come to recognize in the clinic when an elder smiles softly and says, "Doc, I don't eat much. Just a little treat in the afternoon, something small, a piece of rice cake, maybe a banana, just something to enjoy with my tea." And when they say it, there's often a kind of quiet innocence in their voice, a trace of joy, because that snack, the one they share with a grandchild or nibble on while watching the late afternoon light settle on the porch, doesn't feel like a danger. It feels like a blessing, a moment of sweetness in an otherwise modest life. But I've learned over the years and through many tears that sometimes what we think is kindness to ourselves is actually a slow unraveling. Not because we're careless, but because we mean well. And in our longing for comfort, we overlook what the body is truly asking for. The snacks I'm speaking of are familiar in nearly every culture. Soft, sticky rice cakes like mochi or injolmi, sugar-dusted glutinous balls, slices of banana, handfuls of grapes, or a few sweet persimmons when they're in season. None of these sound dangerous, and in moderation, in youth, perhaps they're not. But in an aging body, where insulin stumbles, where sugar lingers too long in the bloodstream, these small treats can lead to quiet devastation. I remember one woman, Mrs. Estelle, 78, a widow who raised 4 children and still baked bread every weekend for her church. She came to me after months of blurry vision and tingling feet. She wasn't overweight, she wasn't a heavy eater, but every afternoon at 3 p.m. like clockwork, she'd sit by her kitchen window with a plate of injalmi and a half a banana. She told me, "It keeps me company, reminds me of when my grandkids used to visit every weekend." That snack was her ritual, her soft tether to memory. But her blood sugar didn't see nostalgia. It only saw the rapid absorption of glucose, the sticky flood of starch and fruit sugars arriving all at once. Her A1C was dangerously high. Diabetic neuropathy had already set in, and the saddest part was, she had no idea. "I thought I was being good," she said quietly. "I never eat cookies or ice cream." That's the heartbreak of it. These foods come dressed as healthy, After all, aren't fruits natural? Aren't rice cakes just simple grains? Yes, but it's not just about what a food is. It's about what it does inside a body that's no longer 30 or 40 or even 60. I had another patient, Mr. Leo, 82, a soft-spoken man who lived alone and prided himself on keeping things plain and clean. He'd start his mornings with toast and tea, but by afternoon he'd grow restless. "I just need something to hold me over," he said. That something was often a few pieces of sticky rice cake or dried dates. Within a year, his kidney function had declined. He began waking at night with leg cramps. His energy faded. And through it all, he insisted, "I don't snack much, just a little sweet here and there." And that's the problem, dear reader. The little sweet becomes daily, the innocent bite becomes ritual, and the body, already weary from decades of faithful service, cannot keep up. But here's what I want you to know: you can still snack. You can still enjoy that gentle moment at 3 p.m. You can still hold a warm cup and a plate by the window. You just need to fill it differently. Try a boiled egg. It's simple, protein-rich, and easy to prepare ahead of time. Keep a small bowl of unsalted nuts nearby. Walnuts, almonds, or sunflower seeds. They provide healthy fats and slow-release energy. Chop up cucumber sticks or celery and dip them in a bit of plain yogurt. It may not taste like childhood, but it honors your future. And that, too, is a kind of sweetness. And if fruit is something you long for, reach for berries. Just a small handful of blueberries or strawberries. These fruits are rich in antioxidants, kind to your blood sugar, and generous to your heart. The shift doesn't have to feel like loss. It can feel like love. Love for the body that still carries you. Love for the days you want to spend without the fog of fatigue or the shadow of complication. So next time you reach for a sweet rice cake or a soft banana, pause. Place your hand on your heart and ask gently, "Am I feeding my memories or am I feeding my life?" Because you deserve joy, but not at the cost of your vision. You deserve comfort, but not at the cost of your strength. And you deserve to grow old not with fear, but with clarity, grace, and peace. 4. Eating too quickly, especially with soup, baked dishes. There is something deeply familiar, even sacred, about a bowl of warm soup poured over rice. For many of my elderly patients, it's not just a meal, it's a ritual. It's what their mother made when they were ill. It's what they fed their children when times were lean. It's what they turned to on cold mornings and quiet evenings. Soft, comforting, and easy to swallow, rice soaked in broth feels like safety in a spoon. But I've come to see with painful clarity that this very ease can become a hidden danger, especially in the later chapters of life. As we age, our digestive system no longer moves at the pace it once did. The enzymes, the muscle contractions, the hormonal responses, they all slow down. And yet the habit of eating quickly often remains. Particularly with soup-based dishes, which require little to no chewing, we find ourselves finishing a bowl before our bodies have even had a chance to realize they're full. The food slides down effortlessly, and the harm slips in just as quietly. What feels like a nourishing bowl of comfort can, for a diabetic or pre-diabetic elder, become a fast track to glucose overload. I remember Mr. Douglas, an 81-year-old retired mechanic who came to see me with fluctuating blood sugars and persistent fatigue. He was sharp, disciplined, and proud of his simplicity. "I eat clean," he said, "just a bowl of rice and soup, twice a day, quick and done." And that was the trouble, quick and done. No chewing, no pause. 10 minutes and the bowl was empty. His pancreas, long overworked, couldn't keep up with the speed. His insulin response lagged behind. The sugar surge came too fast, too hard, and too often. We worked on a small change. I asked him to separate his rice and soup and to chew each bite at least 20 times. At first he resisted. "Feels unnatural," he grumbled. But after a few weeks, he came back with softer eyes. "Doc," he said, "food tastes better when I give it time. I feel fuller with less, and my numbers are better." It wasn't magic, it was mindfulness. What many don't realize is that the act of chewing isn't just mechanical, it's chemical. Chewing triggers the release of incretin hormones, which help regulate blood sugar after eating. When we skip that step by rushing or swallowing too quickly, we rob the body of that gentle preparation. The result is blood sugar that spikes rapidly, then crashes, or worse, lingers high for hours, damaging vessels, nerves, and eyes one meal at a time. Soup-based meals, by their nature, invite speed. The food is already softened, the broth warms the throat, and the spoon moves fast. But what feels nurturing can become neglectful if we're not attentive, and when eaten distracted, while watching television or reading the news, the problem doubles. We're not just eating quickly. That's why I now encourage every patient, especially those living with diabetes or prediabetes, to treat meals as moments of presence. Turn off the TV, sit in silence or with gentle music, use a smaller spoon, pause between bites, chew until the texture has changed completely. Listen to your body, feel the food, honor the act of eating as a form of care, not a task to be completed. I've seen patients reduce their blood sugar levels, their digestive complaints, and even their emotional stress by making this one change. Not by giving up their favorite dishes, but by giving more time to the act of eating. It's not what you eat, it's how you eat it. When you slow down, your body responds with grace. Your insulin flows more evenly, your energy stabilizes, and often your heart softens too. Mrs. Yvonne, 85, once told me after a month of mindful eating, "It's like I'm actually present for the meal again, like I've been missing it for years even though I was there." That's what slowing down gives you, not just health, but the return of small joys that hurried living had stolen. So I ask you gently, when you eat, are you rushing toward fullness? Or are you walking with your body in quiet respect? Let the soup nourish you, yes. Let the rice comfort you. But don't let the speed of your spoon cost you the very peace you're trying to find. The body is wiser now. Give it the time it's asking for. And you just might find that your healing begins not in what you eat, but in how softly you chew, how patiently you breathe, and how tenderly you sit at your own table. 5. Late-night meals, a silent saboteur. There is a certain quiet that settles in the home after dusk. The chores are done. The children, if they still visit, have gone home. The air cools, the television hums softly in the background. And somewhere between 9 and 10 p.m., many of my older patients find themselves in front of the fridge, reaching for just a little something to fill the silence. A bowl of noodles, a few crackers, maybe a cup of rice or a slice of toast. Something warm, something easy. Not because of true hunger, but because of routine. Because sleep comes slowly these days. Because a lifetime of eating late is hard to unwind. Because sometimes, late at night, food feels like the only companion still awake. I don't judge it, I understand it. I've heard it again and again. But I've also watched with deep sorrow what this quiet ritual does over time to the body of someone living with diabetes. You see, the body is not meant to digest heavily at night. Our insulin sensitivity, the body's ability to manage sugar, naturally drops in the evening. What you eat at 6 p.m. will raise your blood sugar. But what you eat at 10 p.m., that may keep your blood sugar elevated all night long, and while you sleep, that sugar quietly damages your vessels, burdens your kidneys, and disturbs your rest, whether you feel it or not. I remember Mrs. Margaret, 75 years old. She was lively and independent, lived alone, and often stayed up reading or watching dramas until past midnight. She told me, "Doc, I don't eat big meals, just some crackers or toast before bed. Otherwise, I feel empty." And yet every morning her fasting blood sugar was high, her energy was low, she'd wake up groggy, her legs swollen, her nights broken by multiple trips to the bathroom. "Must be old age," she said. But it wasn't just age. It was the nightly routine, a steady stream of small late-night snacks that kept her insulin working overtime in the dark, when it wanted to rest, when it needed to heal. And then there was Mr. Paul, 80 years old, a kind man who had developed a habit of eating ramen while watching the evening news. "It helps me sleep," he joked. But sleep didn't come easily. His kidneys began to fail. His blood pressure rose. His glucose climbed despite medication. The late-night meal meant to bring rest had become a nightly storm inside his system. This is what I call a silent saboteur. Not a dramatic, obvious villain, but a habit so gentle, so familiar, that it slips past our defenses and does its damage slowly, quietly, faithfully. But here's what gives me hope. This is also one of the easiest habits to change, if we meet it with compassion. I never tell my patients to go to bed hungry. Hunger at night only creates more stress, more wakefulness, but I do guide them gently toward replacing the meal with a ritual, a warm cup of unsweetened tea, a small glass of warm water, a quiet walk around the room, even sitting in silence, hands resting on the belly, breathing deeply for 5 minutes. These are all forms of nourishment too, and they do not spike your blood sugar. They do not tax your organs. They let the body soften into sleep. If you must eat something, choose wisely. A small piece of cucumber, a boiled egg, a few walnuts. Something simple, clean, and blood sugar friendly. And always aim to finish eating by 7 p.m. This one change alone can dramatically improve your fasting blood sugar, your sleep quality, and your energy in the morning. Mr. Paul, after much coaxing, tried replacing his ramen with a cup of barley tea and a handful of roasted barley grains. Within weeks, he began sleeping through the night. His blood sugar dropped. "Doc," he said, smiling, "I forgot what a good night's sleep felt like." And Mrs. Margaret? She started keeping sliced celery in a jar by her bedside. "It's not toast," she laughed, "but it works. And I wake up clearer now, lighter." These changes didn't take months. They didn't require expensive medication. They just required attention and tenderness and the willingness to say, maybe it's time I let my body rest the way it's been asking me to. So if you're someone who reaches for food after the sun has set, not from hunger but from habit, I invite you to pause tonight, not to punish yourself, not to go to bed empty, but to ask a different question. What is it I'm really hungry for? Because sometimes what we truly crave isn't food. If you've stayed with me until now, I want to say thank you, not just for listening, but for opening your heart to truths that may have been difficult to hear. I know it isn't easy to question the meals and habits that have brought you comfort for decades. It's not easy to admit that what once gave you strength may now be asking too much of your body. But that kind of honesty, that kind of courage, is where healing truly begins. You see, I haven't shared these lessons from textbooks. I've lived them. I've held the hands of patients who could no longer walk, no longer see, no longer feel their own heartbeat without medication. And too often it wasn't because they didn't care. It was because no one told them. No one slowed down enough to say, that tea may be too sweet. That bowl of rice may be hurting you. That midnight snack may be costing you more than you know. But now you know. And knowing gives you the chance to choose differently, to choose gently, to choose with love. Not just for the traditions that shaped you, but for the future that still awaits you. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to change everything overnight. Just begin with one small act of kindness toward your own body. Swap the rice. Chew slowly. Close the kitchen a little earlier. Sit with your tea, unsweetened but full of warmth, and say to yourself, I am still learning. I am still healing. I am still here. And that, perhaps, is the most beautiful truth of all.